Ink-a-dink, 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 ink-a-dink. Wow.
Sure. That's fine. Basil has no. If there were a team, with cats on it, then Basil would have a preference.
What you mean?
Although the Cincinnati Bengals, he doesn't care. That's Detroit Tigers, nah, not interested. Sorry. So he doesn't care. Jets. Basil's never been on a jet, but he would certainly be just as happy to. But I'm telling you that he.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville Jaguars?
No.
No, too close to Sanford, Florida, he says.
Poor.
Okay, and he does, we had Basil on, of course. Basil was one of our guests recently, and Basil is a cat that lived in Sanford in the George Zimmerman household. And what happened to Basil was, Basil came along with a representation of the Buddha also, who came, they both joined us. Basil, the statue representing Basil in Sanford, Florida. And Basil actually lived in the George Sanford household. Not George Sanford, George Zimmerman household. And apparently one day, he went out the cat door, couldn't get back in.
Oh, no.
So the poor cat's wandering the neighborhood, and where does he end up? He ends up being adopted by the family of Trayvon Martin, the household where Trayvon Martin's dad lives. So Basil, in Sanford, Florida, actually is intimate, has intimate knowledge and knows both families quite well. And he compared both families, said both very average, normal families, nothing special one way or the other about them. But he couldn't talk at length about the details. He was actually out the night that the killing took place.
And he's dead now, right?
No, this is Basil from Sanford, Florida. Now, he's very much alive. He couldn't tell us a lot because he figured he probably would get called by the grand jury to give the information that he acquired being out that night. But he was only out for the very beginning of the encounter between Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. He got distracted by a mouse running across the street and flew off after the mouse and yada yada. He didn't hear too much, but what he did hear, he figures the grand jury is going to want to know about it. So anyway, but that's the other Basil. This Basil doesn't want to. He's done with that Basil. Done, over with. Only cat-related matters of a Connecticut nature are counting for now. And Basil actually he did a little cat scratching because he's starting to get the hang of doing a little cat scratching because he can't do the computer too well because of as he describes his furry galumpy paws. But he did a little cat scratching and he taken the name Willard Mitt Romney. And he's finding some rearranging of the letters, and he's come up.
What was the second part of the name?
Mitt.
No, Mitt what?
Willard is his real name.
Willard
Mitt Romney.
Romney?
Romney.
I thought it was Rob Me.
No.
I thought his last name was R-O-B-M-E.
Okay,
Rob
hold on. Basil's going to explain to you the easiest way to remember his last name, because it's got R for Republican. And then it's got the letters in money rearranged. So Romney, you can rearrange the letters and get R for Republican, and then get the word money.
I'd rather have Rob Me. I think it's more concise.
Rob me?
Rob Me. You might as well be truthful. Let's be honest with
I'm
each other.
telling you. But
if he gets into office, he's going to rob us. So just be honest.
Okay.
Get it out in the first place.
Okay.
Let us know right off the bat. But listen, that's not why I came here to talk tonight.
Basil's almost ready to hear your story, but he just wants he wants me to share a couple things that he kind of playing around with the letters on Willard Mitt Romney, and he came up with some words, and he's going to find complete statements by rearranging all the letters. He's just gotten started though, but he's got, of course, one thing you could do is you could take the R, Republican, and O-M-N-E-Y, flip them around and you get money, so Republican money. But he also came up with, you can get the word warlord out of Willard Mitt Romney. You can derive that out of there. You can actually refer back to his party, the Republican Party in Congress, and you can get the letters.
But wait, what's the Republican Party called?
We're getting to that. Team No. Team No.
But doesn't the Republican Party start with a G?
The GOP, the Grand Old Party?
Is that what it stands for?
Grand Old Party. What else could it stand for?
See, you're wrong.
Come on, okay, Basil, listen up, because he's going to come up with something pretty
They're
interesting.
the greedy old party.
Greedy Old Party.
I mean, come on. You got the guy that wants to rob you.
Yep.
Running the greedy party.
Yep.
The 1%. What more do you need to know?
Basil's whiskers are twitching, and they don't usually twitch unless he's entertained by something that somebody's saying. So he likes
That's all you need to know.
He likes that.
That's all you need to know.
Do you? Oh, yeah, Basil says he likes that. Okay. You could also get out of Willard Mitt Romney. You could also get, let's see.
No health care.
Yeah, well, true that, but Weird Tommy. So we'll figure something, Basil will figure something out of that goes along with the other letters other than Weird Tommy. He came up with Dreary Wilt. Because I guess he thinks that Romney's a little bit on the dreary side. He's not very exciting or personable even.
Have you seen him laugh? I mean, honest, have you really ever seen him laugh?
No. Basil says no. He doesn't have a laugh button on his back.
I don't think he has a laugh button anywhere. See, that's one of the things that scares me.
That he can't laugh?
I don't think... Some of the stuff he comes up with, I mean, this is crazy. And then, of course, we're talking about the greedy old party. We're talking about, I'm fortunate enough to have a garage. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have it, But the thing is, I never thought about putting elevators in from my cars, So we live in a poor neighborhood.
Like the elevators in Mitt Romney's garage.
Oh, yeah. Well,
now, did he do better than John McCain? Did he figure out how many houses he has?
I don't know.
McCain in 2008, and I'll tell you, quite frankly, a lot of folks that voted for Obama gave McCain his due. They thought he was a pretty decent guy. He's a war hero. A decent human being, fairly reasonable in a lot of cases, a good... certainly a better compromising individual than the dude on the Democrat side that claims that title. Joe Lieberman. McCain is certainly closer to a decent human being and a good compromiser than the dude on the Democrat side, Joe Lieberman. So anyway, so Basil wants to hear about, what did you want to talk about? Basil, he's our guest. He's going to decide. To some degree, Basil will have some. Basil's got the microphone switch, so he can cut you off if he wants to. And Basil will. Now, I just want to advise you, of course, I'm going to have to translate for Basil because Basil does not speak English.
Okay.
Basil, were you here one of the times with John Kasumi, the head of the Chinese democracy movement in America?
No.
Okay, you didn't get a chance to meet him. Okay, John Kasumi was on Progressive Soup, I don't know, 5 times maybe, a lot of times. And he's the head of the Chinese democracy movement in America. Now, when Basil put together a Facebook page, with my help, he ended up friending John Kasumi. And as soon as he friended John Kasumi, he ended up getting friend recommendations from a lot of folks whose names are in Chinese characters. So Basil decided that he wasn't going to learn Mandarin, because, of course, Mandarin is the official Chinese Communist Party language, therefore it's the official language of China. Basil decided he was going to learn not Cantonese.
Can I interrupt?
You may.
I have to ask this question.
You may. And Basil may even answer.
And I never really thought about this, but...
Go ahead.
When somebody goes to type in Chinese or Mandarin...
Yeah.
What kind of keyboard do they have?
It's got to be a different keyboard, obviously.
No, but I mean, if there's 4,000 different characters, they don't have 4,000 keys, right?
I would think that it probably has to be some adaptation of that, and I've seen the writing, of course.
Oh, you have?
It's on the Facebook pages. The Facebook pages have their names and and what
But I mean,
they write on the Facebook.
It's got to be a regular keyboard, but I mean, I never thought about it.
It may be. It may, in fact, be. There's a computer mechanism that translates the regular keyboard language and prints it out as Mandarin.
See what you're saying.
It's very possible. I'm not sure. Yeah. That's a very good question.
I could see going the one way, but going the opposite way?
That's a very good... Do you have any idea about that, Basil? Basil says, nah.
Hey,
he doesn't care about English either, so...
We can Google it.
We could.
No, I tell you,
we could.
I got to be honest with you. Most of the stuff that I've learned in the past few years has been through Googling.
Yep.
And what amazes me is when I go to ask a question... Like, let's just take, if I want to find out what's the price of XYZ. Yeah. Somebody's already typed that question in ahead of me.
So it shows up already.
Yeah, and I go,
one of your choices. Oh, interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, one time I had a thing with the dog. I forget what it was. With our dog. And I forget, so I typed in a question, you know.
He said cat. He said dog, but he meant cat. Okay, go ahead.
And sure enough, somebody, you know, and I said, wow, look at this. Somebody else is crazy, you know. And it's amazing. Just about anything you want to look for.
So somebody's already been there. Well, I guess however many people worldwide have actually gone on the computer and used Google or some other search engine. I guess Google's the premier one, but there are a bunch of other ones that...
And that's why, that's like what we're going to talk about next, you know, with climate change and global warming.
Ah, okay.
This is where I've gotten all my information from the internet. Okay. Now, there's two ways to look at this now.
Okay, before you go on, Basil wants to make one other quick note. He wants to note that when you talk about the language, the use of the Chinese characters on the computer and their language, Basil does speak cat. That was his original language.
Okay.
And he says it's very, you folks that speak English or speak any language in the world, big deal, because cats actually only have two verbalizations, two sounds that they make, and those sounds, which are okay, and the other one is those two sounds, depending on how you flex them, how you adjust them just a tiniest bit, actually represent 937,382 different words. They've got more words in their language than we have in the English language. And I think that's just absolutely amazing that would be the case. Now, he says it's not unusual for the inflection in the language to have a lot to do with the word. Spanish, for example, he makes Spanish as a case that the same word in Spanish, depending on how you flex it up or down at the end, it's a question or it's an answer.
That's right.
So there you go. So see, that's, you know, a lot of it's in the pronunciation and how you flex the word. And cats, amazingly enough, can you imagine two different, what sounds to human ears, two different sounds, can actually represent any of 930, how many? Well, he said since he last spoke, it's gone up a little bit. It's 938,318 now.
Do you remember?
Because they're always adding words to the language, like we do.
Do you remember the movie, My Cousin Vinny? When
I do.
When the guy said to him,
Basil saw it too.
When the guy is reading back the testimony of what the kid said, of Rod, what was the kid's name? Rod, okay, you know, one of the principals.
Squeaky, we'll call him.
He goes, so then I asked him, I said, so did you shoot the sheriff? And he said, I shot the sheriff. So I asked him again, I said, did you shoot the sheriff? And he said, I shot the sheriff.
Did he shoot the deputy?
But if you watch the movie when he goes, did you shoot the sheriff? And he goes, I shot the sheriff? And he goes, did you shoot the... I shot...
And they read it to testimony back as being him agreeing, him acknowledging that he shot the sheriff, rather than as a question.
Just what Fox News does every day. They make every statement in question form. Just watch them.
Yeah.
Just everything. Perfect example. Is the president a Muslim?
There you go. And that's an innocent question.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying he is. I just,
Yeah, we're just asking. See, Basil sees a lot of that when he goes on, because he'll go on the internet with my help, and he actually posts on a couple of little internet rags. One's called Newsmax, which is the better known one, and the other one is Conservative Byte, and that's B-Y-T-E instead of B-I-T-E. And a lot of times the title of the story is in the form of a question.
You want to have some real fun? Go on the Daily Caller. Doesn't matter what story you click on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Click on a story.
The Daily
Caller.
The Daily Caller, okay.
And the only reason why I remember it is because Tucker Carlson. Okay. But anyway, he's one of the principals. So I went on there, and I'm able to get in. But so what I do is I watch the videos or I read the article, and where I have the most fun is in the comments.
Oh, he said Tucker. Okay. Like he wasn't sure about. Okay.
But it doesn't matter what it is that you're talking about. The people on the right, I'm telling you, there's only one way I can describe these people. And I have to be very polite, and I have to call them simple folk. And the reason why I call them simple folk is none of them are going to be Rhodes Scholars. None of them are going to ever be candidates to be a Rhodes Scholar.
Well, they don't want to be elitists, apparently. They don't like the word elite. As a matter of fact, where elite used to be a very respectable word. I mean, you have your military elite. Elite used to be a very well-respected word. We all should respect people who are the cream of the cream, or as those nasty French say, the creme de la creme. But, hold on. Basil says that it's always been that way in history, that the word elite has always meant something good, and now it seems like whenever he hears the word elite used on those websites, and he'll go to that one you mentioned also. He says they always use it in a very derogatory way. They don't like education. Some of them, it seems like. Seems like some folks don't like intelligence. They don't like education. They don't like people who actually question things, who actually fact check. They let Rush Limbaugh do their fact checking for them.
You know, as a matter of fact, on the way over here, this is a perfect example.
Go ahead.
Perfect example. I'm listening to my buddy Rush, and he's talking about, it's Friday. So on Friday, they have Open Line Friday.
Okay, I thought you were going to say casual
because anybody
I thought you were going to say casual.
Any other day of the week, it's Rush's show, but on Friday, people can ask their own questions.
Okay, I thought you were going to say it's casual OxyContin use Friday.
I tell you, there are times I listen to him, I say, he's got to be on the juice. Because I tell you, the elevator ain't going to the top floor. But he had this one clown call up. Yeah. And they were talking about. No,
I don't think he means clown literally. I think he means kind of in a.
But they're talking about John Diamond, the CEO of I'm going to say Chase. I think it's Chase or Citibank. Okay, and the $2 billion
JP Morgan Chase. Yeah.
That they just. So the guy calls up and he says, Rush, if McDonald's lost $1 billion in a product that failed, nobody would say a word about it. And I'd say, you know what? You're right. Nobody except the shareholders would say anything about it. But what people don't realize is that money that they put at risk, that $2 billion, is insured by who? The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Which, if they've got to pay out,
not sure. Actually, I'm not sure if it is, because I think
absolutely. If they lose the money, if the bank loses the money, who bails them out? The taxpayers.
Through the Federal Reserve, I would imagine, if that's the case.
Not through the Federal Reserve. No, 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 no.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Okay, I'm going to double check that. I'm going to fact check that, and Basil is too, because
it's simple. Google it. Well, you know what? We should have a computer here right now, and we could put this to bed.
Okay, because in the banks, it says very clearly on their investment arms, and of course, banks didn't used to be able to guide you into investment. They were simply banks. They had certificate of deposits. They had all kinds of IRAs and things of that nature that were very simple financial instruments. You didn't gain a lot of money. You didn't lose a lot of money. Actually, you didn't lose any money because they were insured. But apparently, that banks all have to sign along with their investments, their stock investments, that say your investment is not insured. It can go up or down. Basically, if it goes down...
We're talking about
Sorry,
the bank.
Charlie.
We're talking... No. You're thinking about a 401k or something. We're talking about the money that you have on deposit in the bank.
That's insured.
If you have $100,000 in the bank, and that bank took your money and pissed it away at the racetrack, guess who's going to pay for that?
You're going to have to use the word puss with Basil. Basil
better grow up a little bit because he's got to learn. Now,
no, I'm not.
Now now. So what does Rush do? Instead of trying to clarify everything, he muddies the water.
Yeah.
By telling this guy, he says, well, you know, the whole problem and what caused this to happen is it was. You're going to help me with this. It was with Dodd-Frank. And because all of a sudden they put these new regulations in place, and this is what happened. That motherfucker, I tell you.
That's the word you can't use.
That son of a bitch, because of what he just said right then and there, is such a lie. And to perpetuate it in the fashion that he did, and to let people think that, you know, what he's telling you is the truth when it's not. But why the scheme? You know what I mean? Why is this? And why do you want to deceive people? And see, I got so excited. You know what I mean?
Basil said he had a conversation with our camera guy, and he clarified it for him. And our camera guy is a snark hound, and apparently he's also one of George H.W. Bush's dogs. But aside from that, Basil says he's clarified that as best he could for any of the crazed lunatics out there that don't understand that the problem in the Depression was solved by a bill that went through Congress called Glass-Steagall, which separated the banks away from these crazy investments.
It worked for 70 years. No problems.
And then in 2000, right in between Bill Clinton going out the door and George W. Bush coming in the door, Congress rescinded Glass-Steagall, and it was bipartisan. It was 98-0, I believe, in the Senate.
But getting back to what Rush said with the Dodd-Frank thing.
But Dodd-Frank, in fact, did put a lot of those essentials of Glass-Steagall back in place.
But most of Dodd-Frank has not been enacted yet.
Right.
Even though it's been proposed, it hasn't become law yet. So the thing is, Rush is taking that statement where he's pretending that it's already a law. He's pretending that that was the cause of the problem. And the people that sit there and listen to him go, see, they... And so all he did was mislead them.
It's that white-haired guy and that gay guy.
And then, you know, but to purposely mislead people. And what really gets me is they'll sit there and they'll vehemently defend them. But yet, would they ever... I'll tell you, when I talk with these people online, they're not critical thinkers. If you challenge them in any way, it's like you're a bully. You know, you're hateful.
Defensive, eh?
I'm hateful.
They get defensive.
Because I'm telling you the truth. I'm hateful because you're hearing something that you don't want. If I told you that Santa Claus was a myth, would I be hateful? If I told that to a little 2-year-old Christmas Eve, that's hateful. If I tell you now, that's not. But to the conservatives that are on these blogs, The elevator doesn't go to, and most of them are people of faith, and that's what really scares me.
We're going to come back and we're going to do a second show, our Sunday morning show. We're going to come back and we'll have...
People of faith?
Yep.
Oh, mama, don't get me going with that.
And we'll have Rich on with us again, but on our Sunday morning show, we do a little bit more of a religious show, and Basil's quite convinced that the folks that you're talking about, they claim to be religious, are not very religious at all.
No, how can you be? I mean, how can you honestly sit there? Listen, if there was evidence that there was a God and that religion was valid, we wouldn't need any faith. The only reason why you need faith is because you have no evidence. And why do you have no evidence? Because listen to these stories. These people are nuts. They think that all the animals in the world got on a boat. And they traveled around, and then the water went away. And this is crazy stuff.
Now, see, Basil's going to say, but what the point he wants to make is that's Old Testament. And Basil, like myself, we're not too big on the Old Testament.
Old Testament.
We're not too big on Genesis, the next list, and Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, blah, 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 blah. It's the New Testament that we focus on.
Yeah, so where do you want to get going with that?
But you're absolutely right. He and I will, and I want him to correct. Now, okay, he says, fine, go right ahead with it. We agree that all that stuff, who really cares whether the animals got on a boat 2 by 2? That's whether it happened or not. That's not really germane to faith. That's
well, let me ask you
old
this,
Bible school.
Then in the new part, then why did Jesus die? Why did God kill his own son?
I guess you could call it a sacrifice in a sense.
Sacrifice?
In a sense.
I wouldn't sacrifice my son for nothing.
Okay, we're going to have to cut off there. We're going to come back. We're going to do a second show with Rich, and this has been Basil BuddhaCat Presents. I'm David Stevenson, Basil's co-host, interpreter, and chief gopher. Basil and... What's your last name again, Rich?
Frascone.
Frascone, okay. Good night.
That was a half hour?
I don't think I am.
They say they'd rob your grandma blind on Wall Street, on Wall Street. Fritter her away her Medicare on Wall Street. And Pharma Oil and their pet fox don't care if she lives in a box, so long as they wear platinum jocks on Wall Street, on Wall Street. Meow.